Good morning. What a great crowd we have here today. If it takes Kentucky winning every Saturday night to have a good crowd, then I will pull for the big donation. We are very blessed to have a great crowd. We are blessed to have visitors. We hope you will find our worship encouraging, our church family hospitable and open, and we hope you'll choose to come back and worship with us again. Today's lesson is about restoration. In 1886, the Washington Monument was built for around $250,000. In 1986, they did a remodel. It cost $86 million. A lot of money to restore a monument. This is a picture of a 1969 Plymouth Roadrunner. Some of us will remember when Plymouth was actually a car company. This particular model, 69 Roadrunner GTX, would cost you around $4,200 new, because you had to get the one that had the Hemi. If you wanted to restore this car, it would cost you anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 plus cost. Remodels are expensive. Buying a house, a lot of times it's cheaper, easier to buy a new house than to buy an older house and then try to restore that house. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of hard work to restore someone's life. Think about who we're meant to be, who we were made to be. We go all the way back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, and God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." We're created in God's image. He created us with a purpose. The author of Ecclesiastes, at the end of the book, he said, the end of all matter is this: fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. We have a purpose to have a relationship with God, to walk with God, to commune with God. But we live in a time now where God is viewed by many as mythical. It's not really real. Nobody fears God anymore. Nobody respects His word, His commands. His commands are, you can overlook them. You can misuse them. You can ignore them. But it's not meant to be that way. We're meant to have a relationship with God. We're meant to work in His garden, to be a part of His kingdom. But as we all well know, sin enters the picture, and that relationship becomes scarred, damaged. It stains what God created to be made holy. And we find ourselves separated from Him. Paul told the Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 12, he says, "Remember that you were at that time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, strangers to the covenant of promise, having no hope and without God in the world." So what is the cost of being restored to God? Well, we all know the answer to that is Jesus Christ. He loved us. He gave His life to die for us. He came to restore us, to redeem us, to make us whole, to bring us back to God. That's what Jesus came to do for us. That's what Jesus did for us. The restoration of our sinful life is simple, yet we make it very, very difficult. Scriptures say we must have faith, but many will doubt. God says you have to believe, but many will question. You have to repent, yet many can't turn away. You have to be immersed, and many will argue over the means. At the end of the day, many people want to know God, many people want to go to heaven, many people want to claim that title of being saved, yet they want to do it their way. Which brings us to the story today. If you have your Bibles, open them to 2 Kings chapter 5. Let's begin with the first 5 verses this morning. It tells us about this man named Naaman. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man. He was a great man with his master and in high favor, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. Now the Syrians on one of their raids had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and she worked in the service of Naaman's wife. And she said to her mistress, "Would that my Lord were with the people, were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy." So Naaman went in and told his Lord, "Thus and so spoke the girl from the land of Israel." And the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So Naaman, what's said about this man? Well, it tells us he was a commander. He was a captain. He was the guy in charge of Syria's army. And the king, everybody saw him as this great man, capable of leading Syria to victory. But the text tells us that it was God working through Naaman that gave the victory. But he was a mighty warrior. Right? Strong. All that you could ask for in a good soldier. But he was proud. We'll understand that a bit later on. He was proud. He expected people to move at his command because of who he was. He was king of the jungle, we might say, other than the king himself. He was the mighty one, the warrior. There's a story of the lion. The lion thought himself to be king of the jungle, king of the animal kingdom, and he decided to go around and make sure all the other animals knew who was in charge. It's him. And he bypassed all the smaller ones. He went straight to the bear. And he went up to the bear and he said, "Who is the king of the jungle?" And the bear said, "Well, you are, of course." And the lion gave him a roar of approval. Then he went and found the tiger. He said, "Who is the king of the jungle?" And the tiger, he kind of shirked back and he said, "You, of course, you're the mighty lion." Next on his list was the elephant. And he went to the elephant and he says, "Who is the king of the jungle?" And the elephant immediately took his trunk and he grabbed that lion by the tail and he bounced him off the ground about 5 or 6 times, and then he dumped him in the water 2 or 3 times. Then he finally threw him on the shore. And the lion was beaten, he was bruised and battered. He stumbled to his feet, and his eyes all puffed up. He looked at that lion and he said, "If you don't know the answer to the question, just let me know." There was a lion that was greater than Naaman. In the text, he was this great man. He had high favor. He was a mighty man of valor, verse 1. But it says he was a leper. There was something that Naaman couldn't conquer, that Naaman couldn't deal with. Now, we don't know what kind of leper he was. Leprosy was a skin disease, so it could be many things. We know from Leviticus chapter 13 and 14, God gave specific instruction on dealing with, diagnosing, treating those that had a form of leprosy. In Israel, lepers had to live separate from the population. They wore tattered clothing. They had to warn people that they had lepers, that they had leprosy, and not to get too close. And if for whatever reason they could become healed, then they had to follow all these rituals and go to the temple and make sure they were taken care of. In Naaman's case, we don't know how he got it. We don't know the form. We don't know how he interacted with people other than what the text says. Well, they loved Naaman. They favored him. But the leprosy bothered him. And we know that it bothered him because what does he do when he hears that a slave comes into his house and talks about a prophet that can heal him? What does he do? He goes to the king. "Hey, I need to go see this guy. I need to get this taken care of." Naaman saw the flaw in his lineage, in his legacy, was leprosy. Because it didn't matter how many battles he won, how many victories he brought to Syria, how many medals he got. Every day he woke up, and guess what? He was still a leper. We all have some form of leprosy. An elephant in the room that we can't conquer. A flaw that we have to deal with. What's the flaw that we have? Sometimes we can hide those flaws from other people. They never know they're there. No one knows that you struggle with self-worth. No one understands the thoughts and desires that go through your mind, that go through your heart every single day. Other flaws, well, they define who we are because everybody knows them. You have the business owner who's known for their lying and their cheating and swindling everybody. You have the young girl who had a child out of wedlock, and everybody knows her situation because of that child. The child is not a flaw, but the flaw is in the decision that young girl made to do what she did. You have the Christian who struggles with their faith, with their dedication, with their walk with God because of the sin that they have in their life. And it seems that no matter how many victories we gain, we still struggle. We still doubt. That poses the question, then, what would you pay to get rid of that flaw? What would you do to get rid of the leprosy in your life? Well, let's read about what Naaman did. Verses latter half of 5b. So he went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, "When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you Naaman, my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy." And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to kill and make alive? But this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Only consider and see how he is seeking a quarrel with me." But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent to the king, saying, "Why have you torn your clothes? Let him now come to me, that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel." And so Naaman came with his horses and chariots, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean." What was Naaman willing to pay to get rid of his leprosy? Well, the king sent with Naaman 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and then 10 changes of clothing. An amount that you would give to another king, an amount of royalty. That's how much this was worth to Naaman. Now, the king of Israel wouldn't have it. He was tore up at the thought that somebody thought he was in God's position. And again, this kind of goes to the culture at that time. Kings in that era, they were kind of thought of as gods, lowercase g, if you will, in some places. Now, Elisha hears of the sense of the situation, and he sends for Naaman. "Tell him to come to me, and Naaman will know." Naaman will believe that a messenger of God dwells in Israel. And that belief is going to come from a simple act. All Naaman has to do is go jump in the Jordan. Wash 7 times, and he will be restored. What does it take to be restored to God? We know it's Christ. But some people will add to that. Some people will think that restoration is predicated on how good a lifestyle they live. The amount of good deeds they can gather up and build a list. We are supposed to do good everywhere. Galatians chapter 6, verses 9 and 10, Paul says, "Let us not grow weary of doing good at all. For in due season we will reap if we do not give up." So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. We are to do good to everyone, but the most important good that we can ever do is not based on a quota of good deeds. It's based on belief. It's based on obedience. Jesus said in John chapter 6, verses 28 and 29, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent." Naaman just has to believe in the prophet of God and the message that the prophet has given him through his messenger. The thing is, the way that Naaman responds is how other people respond today. They respond in a selfish manner. Verses 11 and 12, it says, Naaman was very angry at this. What is he angry at? The message that has been brought to him by a messenger. Verse 11, "Behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me. He would stand, he would call upon the name of the Lord his God, and wave his hand over the place and cure the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the rivers of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in a rage. Nice storm alerts going on. We say? I say we might need to do it's a complete side thing. I get tickled. Tornado warnings, and we used to walk the hall and cover our heads up. That was supposed to be the safest thing in the world. Here's your sign. Naaman had some different expectations when he went to meet Elisha. He was used to people coming out to meet him. He comes up to Elisha's house with this procession. He has the horses, he has the chariots. And so it probably threw him for the loop that Elisha didn't even come outside. He sends a messenger. And this messenger, he's like, I'm the great Naaman. Everybody's supposed to come out to me, and this messenger comes. And we're not going to have a grand ceremony. There's not going to be pomp and circumstance. We're not going to have a big to-do. Elisha's not going to come out and stand before me and call upon his God and wave his hands and babble and cure me. And I have to go to the Jordan. I have to go to the river in Israel. Why can't I go to the river back home? My river tastes better than in Israel. Theirs are salty, mine are sweet. I'm not going to do it. He turns away. I thought how many times I have went to God with an idea of how I wanted things to be. And God's idea was completely different than mine. God's idea was always better than mine. But many times we'll go to God with a thought, with an idea of how things should be, and they're not that way. We're like Naaman in this sense. We have these preconceived notions. Naaman came to get restoration or find healing, but he wanted it his way, not God's way. And people do that. They go to God, but they want to go to God with their mode. They want to find salvation the way they want to find salvation. And you tell somebody that simply saying the Lord's Prayer isn't enough, and you cause strife, you cause animosity. And that's the crutch of this text today. Naaman thankfully has somebody that's willing to stand up to him. Verse 13, but his servants came near and said to him, my father, it is a great word the prophet has spoken to you. Will you not do it? Has he actually said to you, wash and be clean? He has somebody to give him a little common sense. Naaman lacked belief. Naaman lacked understanding. He didn't understand that his healing was not predicated on anything he could do, or even a certain location. It was all about God. God could heal him if he would just be obedient. It requires some grand event. It didn't require anything except him following the commands that he was given. What was needed for the world to be restored? Who paid the cost? God did. Our restoration was paid for by Jesus Christ. Peter writes, 1 Peter chapter 1. 1 Peter chapter 1, 18 and 19. Knowing that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers, not with perishable things such as silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Jesus Christ, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. The cost was great for us. The cost was immense. But it was paid, so that we could be God. The way is not clear. Acts chapter 7. They heard what happened. What do they do? What do we do, Peter? Peter says, repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the forgiveness of sins. Acts chapter 8, verses 35 and 36. Philip taught the eunuch, and the eunuch saw water, and he said, what prevents me from being baptized? Nothing. The chariot stopped. They both went down into the water, and Philip baptized the eunuch. Acts chapter 6. Remember? Sir, what must I do to be saved? Believe in the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved, you and your household. The only hindrance that prevents any of us from being restored to God is ourselves. At the end of the day, the only hindrance is ourselves. It was Naaman's pride that hindered him. But he had a servant to help him. And so what did Naaman do? He showed obedience. Verse 14, he went down and he dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, just as he had been told to do, according to the command of God. And what happened? His flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, he was made clean. Now, what's interesting about Naaman's story is he wasn't just made clean physically. There was a spiritual restoration in this as well. Because the very next verse, verse 15, he returned to Elisha. He and all his company, and he came and he stood before him, and he said, Behold, I know that there is no God in all the earth but Israel. What's the cost for your restoration? What does it cost to be healed? The debt has already been paid. It's paid on the cross by Jesus Christ. The cost for us now is one step. One step filled with humility and obedience. You go back to Luke chapter 15, and we'll close with this story. We all know the story. Most of us do. The story of the prodigal son. The young son, he decides he's going to go off and live his own way. He wants his share of the inheritance. The father willingly gives that to him, and he goes and he lives away in that far country. And he lives in sin, and before long the money's gone. He finds himself with pigs. He decides he's going to return to the farm. He makes that step. He's willing to humble himself. I'm going to be obedient. I'll be a servant if my father will just accept me. You go back to verse 20 and you read, what did the father do? The boy was a long way off. The father saw him, had compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And they fell apart. One step was all it took for that journey of restoration to begin. It encouraged me every day to know that though I fail, though I falter, though I sin, I'm one step away from being restored to God. Because God is always there for me. Waiting. Will. He's going to run if I'll just take the first step. Where is your relationship with God this morning? If it's separate, then make that one step to come closer to God. To embrace Christ and believe in Christ and all He did for you. If you are a Christian but you have faltered, God is always willing to forgive. God is always willing to love and appreciate you. If you have any need, please come this morning as we stand and as we stand.